to the session. After an impressive program this morning and last night, and now we break into thematic sessions to zoom in to some of the big topics touched upon so far. So you are very welcome to this nice location, nice venue, to the topic of AI, touched in the keynote, as well as particular focus of interest to Eurofound and our stakeholders, potential impacts of AI on labor market and employment. By now, we have seen how the debate grew in media. Any media organization or channel by now has a section, newsletter, or another way of debating AI. It's in everyday's news. Every serious organization has held a debate on the topic by now. So there's lots being spoken about the topic. But maybe we should take a reflection on where we are after a couple of years of intensive debating the topic and go perhaps beyond the fear or hype associated with the new technology rise and think about the applicability, use, gains it could provide. Also, even in the keynote speech that gave the global overview, we keep seeing AI, the phrase, is being spoken as one thing, one technology, when it isn't. So how do we segment that? How do we distinguish different impacts of different types of AI and what it all means to what sectors in economy? So to discuss some of these questions, I'm very happy we have our panelists to delve into that in different perspectives. Glad to introduce Pawel Adrjan from Indeed, where he's a director of economic research. And that's the company that has an opportunity to observe what happens in labor market between employers and job seekers in real time. So we are looking forward, Pawel, to hear what your findings, observations are. Also, very happy to have today two people that could represent industry voice. Sheena McCauley represents SAP, one of larger IT actors in Europe, also on the rise, also making big steps and finding ways on how AI can make particular use and provide gains for companies of all sizes, as you say. Sheena, welcome. Murat is another example of an insider to industry, plays a big role in networking between companies, different countries, multinationals in Ireland, the rising French stars in AI, and he himself has been an entrepreneur, an initiative person, business for a number of years in different countries as well. Happy to have you here. And finally, Dhondt is a person that studies what companies do, that studies what workers do and how they do in companies. And it's not a small thing to say and express appreciation that Stephen is an advisory committee member for our working conditions topics, and he has also been one of the insightful experts advising on both working conditions and company survey that Eurofound carries out. So welcome. For the beginning, I'd like to go into a quick round where I would like to ask yourselves to tell where and how you encounter the theme of the day, the AI, the technologies, the ways people or companies deal with them, be it in the data, be it an observation, be it inside of business. Pawel, how is it in your case?
Thanks, Tadas. First of all, DA Vermagen, good morning. As Tadas mentioned, I'm the Director of Research at Indeed for Europe and Asia Pacific. And at Indeed, we're a global platform. We're the world's largest job site. And so we follow labor market trends based on the data from millions of job postings and millions of job seekers who come to our platform every month all around the world. And so the way I encounter AI is twofold. One is through observation and looking at the data, and I'll share some of the data later today about how AI appears in job postings and what we can glean from that, about how core AI is to jobs. And the second way I encounter AI in my work is because Indeed as a platform is also implementing AI in terms of helping job seekers, candidates, and employers find a match in the labor market.
Thank you. Now I will turn to Steve. On the other hand, what do you see by participating in numerous research projects that observe the companies directly?
Well, what I see, I'm working now with companies to create human-centric AI. So we're working with a set of pilots in several of my projects and trying to understand what is needed to make people have control of the AI. So I'll just give you one example. We're working with a big French company that has big machines where they process something that is, it is a nature product, and it relies on the knowledge and experience of the employee dealing with it. But these machines, they need to keep running, they need to be supervised, and so what we're trying to do is develop a tool. I'm sure that you're all aware of Waze as a tool when you're driving with your car. Well, we're trying to create a ways for the employee to deal with the issues and the problems that are related to this machine, because they need to keep this machine running the whole time, but they need to keep the feeling and the knowledge and the smell that the worker has of dealing with this living product that is treating and trying to create solutions. So in developing this tool, we're doing that in a participative way, and we're trying to understand how the worker and how he and she is dealing with the issues of these kinds of tools. So we understand that human-centric AI is possible to get a grip on these kinds of technologies, and that's the kind of the experience that I want to share with you in this discussion.
Brilliant. And just a quick follow-up question. In the background of competitiveness debate now, so in this example and in the research networks you work in, I understand you are dealing with European companies.
Yes. These are, one of our projects, the Seismic project, is 17 pilots, 17 European companies that are dealing with this issue, trying to understand how to get grips on AI, how to make it human-centric. But the core idea is human-centric is not an individual solution, it is an organizational solution. So we're trying to get human-centric organizations, trying to understand what they need to do to create these more profitable and performing situations.
So search for the solutions at the frontier of expanding applying technologies is important, and I find it not a small thing to emphasize this European background, just because too often AI development is associated, as we have heard, with the US, with the leading multinationals there. So further on, as I said, industry voice of the sector itself, the European companies. Sheena, could you share how it looks from inside SAP?
Well, we're doing a lot at SAP that I don't think I could cover in our short session today, but I would love to get a sense, first of all, of who here is familiar with SAP and what we do. Okay, so that's good. That's a start. For those who aren't aware, SAP is one of the largest ERP organizations in Europe. By market value, we actually are the largest. And ERP being, we support customers with all of their critical business processes, from human capital management, sales, customer experience, etc. I work specifically in the human capital management space, so SAP SuccessFactors. And AI is embedded across our suite, not just within the human capital management suite, but across the entire SAP solution suite. I'm dealing with customers, HR, functions specifically of organizations, and seeing firsthand the difficulties that they're facing. Spreadsheets, manual processes, data entry, ticketing, they're really bogged down in the manual side of things, and automation is freeing them up so that they can get closer to people within the organization, which is absolutely central to a HR function. So from a SuccessFactors, an SAP SuccessFactors perspective, that's where AI is absolutely fundamental. But as an employee myself at SAP, AI is fundamental to me getting my work done, and we can discuss that as we go on.
Thank you. And John?
Hi, good morning. For myself, so I've spent the last 25 years working in talent acquisition, so initially helping major organizations set up in Ireland and expand in Europe. And over the past 7 years, I've done a lot of research on AI solution for the recruitment sector. That led us to start a company, my current startup, where we apply, similar to Stephen, AI at human-centric level to enable employers use their culture and their value offering to enable the identification of potential talent for their organization. In addition to that, we automate some of the processes that enables talent acquisition be quicker and more efficient in their time to hire. So we can see that at the moment we're piloting with European companies, and we can see that a lot of the companies are far behind the ability to understand and appreciate the value of AI, especially on an automation level. And this is probably something that is quite important in the landscape of employment.
Brilliant, thank you. So the aspect of finding an applied use is what I hope we'll touch again when talking today. So let me now just go to what I tried to bring up in the beginning. The discourse on AI, including its impact on employment, is so much driven by sharing visions of what's going to happen next 5 years, complete transformation. Next 50 years, we heard like far-reaching. A lot of that discourse is very much vision-focused. And in that, at some point, you have to realize, are there really any facts being used? So I'll turn to this question. In this kind of overextending debate, is there anything apart from the visions, what we know for fact? So in Eurofound, in our agency, we carry out a few strands of research that look for evidence. Among those have been our flagship survey, European Working Conditions Survey last year, that brought up a surprisingly low, relatively low number of workers who say they use generative AI. Of course, we know the scenery is developing dynamic, and from different sources, we get the numbers rising. But apart from companies declaring they use AI, we saw that at a worker level, it's not maybe as fast as it could be. Also, in terms of the use, oftentimes the data we have is at a binary kind of yes or no level, whether people encounter somehow the technology, but what they use it for, how they use it, are very big questions to still explore. So going back to the actual familiarity from different angles, we learn about the using new technologies. What do we know for fact today?
I'm happy to kick off and share some data, because I agree with you, Tadas. It's important to separate hype from reality. I think hype can create a lot of expectation, and it's great to have a vision for how AI can develop in the future, but it can also create a lot of fear. And we know from surveys that actually a much higher share of workers are worried about the impact of AI on their jobs than the share of workers who say in surveys that they use AI. So there's a lot of, there's a big unknown out there. So let me just quickly share 3 sets of data on AI adoption and diffusion by firms, workers, and then what we see in job postings, because that also gives us a little bit more than this binary yes, no, and tells us a bit more about like how AI is actually used. So in terms of AI used by firms, it is actually also quite low. So according to an EU survey in 2024, only 13% of firms with 10 or more employees said that they used AI. Now that varies a lot by firm size. So over 40% of large firms with more than 250 employees said they used AI. So it's a very concentrated usage among only certain segments of the business world. And so that means there's a lot of room for adoption, diffusion, especially among small businesses. And the trends are similar in the United States. So in the US, only about 10% of firms say they used AI. In terms of AI used by workers, your survey had quite a low share of, I think, 12%. Some more recent research from the Joint Research Center and research from the US suggests that may have moved towards sort of 20 to 30%, which is amazing growth considering many of these tools were not used by workers 3 years ago. There's also a lot of variation, so these tools tend to be used more by people with university degrees, less by people without university degrees. Obviously, it's closely related to the specific job. But in terms of how core AI is to jobs, one signal that we can look at are job descriptions and the extent to which AI permeates job descriptions, because job descriptions obviously don't tend to mention all the tasks and all the responsibilities and all the skills involved in carrying out a job, only the very key ones. And when we look at job postings across Europe, we find that in France and Germany, about 3% of job postings today mention AI specifically. In the US, it's 4%. In Ireland, it's actually 11%. So Ireland is an outlier because of the high concentration of tech jobs, mainly. And that has also risen a lot. So for example, in Ireland, it was about 4 to 5% before the pandemic. There were still AI-related jobs before generative AI became well known. And that has grown quite a lot. What we see is that this is also very concentrated. So 90% of postings that mention AI are concentrated in just 1% of firms. So it also tends to be the largest firms. So again, room for diffusion. And in terms of like what those mentions of AI in job descriptions actually relate to, about half of them, 52%, relate to the core development and use of AI tools. So it depends on occupation. So say in software development jobs, that tends to relate to kind of the development of large language models or the use of AI for coding. In the lower paid sort of service occupations, we also see a lot of mentions of AI, but they tend to relate to the use of AI in recruitment. So actually companies telling candidates, okay, you're probably not going to use AI in your work in hospitality or transport, but we're actually using AI to assess your application. So that's about 14% of mentions of AI relate to that across the board, which is also a rising percentage. And then there's also a bit of hype there. So about 25% of mentions of AI in job postings really lack much context. It's sort of companies saying, we are an AI-first company, we're AI-driven, you need to be familiar with AI. And it's really difficult in those cases to understand, okay, well, what skills are actually required. The only thing I would add on to that as a data point, so thinking about the conversation about training in Daniel's speech yesterday, is that to use these AI tools, workers need at least the most basic digital skills. And for example, in Spain, about 30% of the working age population lack those basic digital skills. So as this appears more and more on the hiring side in job descriptions, we also need to make sure that people's digital skills actually catch up to these trends. So I'll stop here.
If I can actually take the follow-up. So we are building a product, especially on the job description side, for example, because it's a really important fact that job description, especially in recruitment, are all the same. Whether you're a Salesforce or an SAP, you're looking for the same type of people. What makes the difference is really the culture and the value. So we use AI to rebuild the job description. So this is a prime example of where AI can really facilitate a better hire. Because when you find the stats, 250 applicants for one hire, generally people who apply for a job, they just randomly apply to every job they can find. Whereas if you rebuild the job description focusing on the culture, the values, or some of the advantages that the company has to offer, you can really see the difference in the application rate. So using AI specifically for that is very important. So that's the first point I wanted to say on that. The second point is, and I do have the same stats as yours actually, Pawel, on the 30% of the workers that use AI, it's important to know that it's all of us who are using ChatGPT to ask a few questions, or Claude, or Gemini. So it's not really within the work environment. So as you're very accurate, the rate of companies actually promoting AI expertise or AI experience, unless they're a data person, are very, very small. So while 30% of the working population is using AI, we're just basically using a chatbot. So it's not really promoting the real true AI and the benefits that AI can bring.
A brilliant point that pushes us to finally distinguish types of technology used and really distinguish also what's being used as a commercial product and what's being used as a work tool. Maybe for a moment we go to another kind of company perspective. Sheena, which arguments are you using? Which facts do you bring up when you need to sell your product?
Perhaps I'll change tact here and move away from stats and share more anecdotal experience with you from dealing with customers. What we're seeing is huge appetite, enthusiasm, interest across workforces, across our customer organization workforces, to use AI. But what's blocking further investment is organizational mandate, governance frameworks, and continued learning that's embedded in the culture of those organizations. Just recently, SAP published a report in conjunction with Oxford Economics, and it was released at our SAP Now AI tour, which toured Europe. And the specific report that I'm referring to covers UK. There is a version that's global, but the UK report brought up the term shadow AI, which is this entire concept of interest, appetite, hunger, but training and governance frameworks aren't keeping pace with that level of interest. So that's certainly an area that requires further exploration. Just on the different types of AI, so perhaps I can explain at SAP, with our SAP Business AI, what's at the heart of that is Joule, which is a generative AI co-pilot and orchestration engine. And it has various purposes. So your business day-to-day purposes, that within HR covers recruiting, onboarding, job descriptions, and specifically on job descriptions and recruiting, unconscious biases are called out in those job postings. And I suppose when we're talking about AI, it's interesting, I'm the only female on this panel. And that's something of particular note that organizations are seeking from our AI tools. So that's the business side of things. Then we have business and consulting, developing and consulting, that AI is used to generate code, unit tests. We also have embedded AI, which is embedded as standard across our entire suite. And then finally, agentic AI, whereby all of our systems are speaking to one another and proactively taking on business tasks within the organization.
Thank you for those highlights. Just before turning to Stephen now, a quick observation. It was authentic that all our panelists brought up the aspect of training. At Eurofound, very recently, it's one of the topics we observe in surveys. It's what social partners debate as well. But in relation to AI, some of us were discussing it will be critical to organize for the economy and the society and at company level, whatever you take, the learning of the skills, the application, the users, and so on. And we were wondering how we will bring this in or on the agenda. So it's interesting to see that it's coming up from the real, the need is being articulated based on the real life experiences. But who will do that training and in what context? Is there something about a learning organization for us to learn from the research that yourselves lead there, Stephen?
Yeah, there are many things that have been highlighted here. One of the things that we need to understand is that we are all very acquainted with AI. Now, I have my mobile phone here. Who hasn't got a mobile phone? Who hasn't got a mobile phone? See, the whole bunch here is, and these things are driven by AI, and there's a lot of AI in it, and so you are using AI every day, all of you. And if you look at the figures, and they try to identify how many people are using, on a personal level, AI, it is enormous. It's enormous amounts of people. But there's a chasm between individuals using it and how organizations are implementing that. And so the low figures that you give are the figures that we see in reality. There's even known that at this moment, 95% of LLM applications fail. So there's only a very small amount of companies that are able to use the possibilities that AI brings to them. And what is needed for that, and that's what I've said in the beginning, you need a learning kind of organization to do that. So you need this context in which employees, management, external developers are collaborating to understand what is done for this. Just to give you one example, we're working with a healthcare organization who's taking care of people with dementia. And they're trying to understand how to improve themselves. This is an organization that is already what we call workplace innovation. So they have done enormous amount of things to make this organization a learning organization. But they're in the healthcare sector, their funds are limited, and they're blocked by the fact that demand is rising for their services, but they do not have more money. So how can they help their people? So they've been thinking of using AI as a tool to do that, to change their business model. And so what they've done is, and I just wanted to see if you're really AI acquainted and experienced, who uses Tinder? Who doesn't know what Tinder is? Everyone knows what Tinder is. So what this manager of this organization said, well, maybe we can use this kind of Tinder application as something to devise a kind of planning of tasks within the organization. So we might use people from outside of the organization. We might use people from the family. We want to have this social environment to create more support for this organization, so people can select tasks that they want to do or deselect tasks that they don't want to do, and give their support to this organization in helping the people with dementia in this organization. And this development is not done by an external organization, it's done with the employees in the organization, so that everyone understands how this planning tool works. And that's how you create a learning organization and a human-centric approach to AI.
Now, an observation. A lot of the examples given, they were alluding about using technology, involving everyone, finding ways to, adapting tools so that everyone can somehow contribute, participate. And none of you so far mentioned displacement, joblessness, lack of work, which is part of actually public imagination and the public discourse. So speaking of the facts, one other depiction from our own working conditions survey on this topic, the workers were asked whether new technologies, a bit broader, in a broader way than just AI, take away the tasks from the work they do, and also whether new technologies add the tasks to the work. So sometimes these two processes are imagined as separate, but what we found in the data, that by and large, these are the same people who are exposed to the new technologies. They, on one hand, say that some tasks are being taken away, but at the same time, the same people say that new tasks are being added. So this overlap is very large. And then in this context, I'm not surprised that you somehow have not brought this topic. So as the time for our discussion runs really fast, we'll invite a couple of comments and questions in the audience, but to stimulate that even further, would you have any quick example of where the gains are or where the dangers are as we speak for regular workers to the majority of workers?
Well, I have another example of one company we work with, and what they did was this is a company that delivers products and services to the country, and what they've always known is that their sellers are constantly bothered by external calls that are asking for quotes on how expensive is this, or how expensive is that, and all those kind of things. So what they did is create a chatbot that siphons these unnecessary questions away. About 50% of their time of these people was bothered by what we call waste. So so now these buyers are busy the whole time with the right questions and not with the wrong questions. So a lot of these AI tools are not creating, let's say, more value or destroying jobs. They're deleting this stupid task and putting that into the machine, and so the employees can now redirect their time to the right kind of things. So AI might delete some jobs, but if they do it right and they do it with the people that are saying this is something. It would be very helpful if you could delete that from us. Then you have good applications.
Yeah, and it was interesting in SAP case, view it more critically or less, that the sales pitch is not that we'll help you, your company, to cut labor costs, but we'll free up your resources for better use. At this point, let us check, is there any willingness to comment, engage into debate, or ask a question to our speakers? One hand is up. Anyone else? I'll hold it for you.
Thank you, Tadas. Yeah. I'm Kevin O'Kelly's my name, and as you know, it's the 50th anniversary of Eurofound, and there was a big alumni get-together during the summer, and I was there, because I worked in Eurofound for a good many years. You mentioned the working conditions survey, which was quite interesting. And Pawel has just talked about the big companies where AI has been used, and smaller and medium-sized companies is not as extensive. I'm coordinating a project at the moment, a European project with 7 member states, and we're looking at 5 specific employment sectors. And it's interesting to look at the different approaches in those sectors. First of all, as regards there are 2 points as regards the size, the application of AI in companies, and it is a big issue within each member state that the large companies have the resources, whereas small and medium-sized companies don't, or it's not necessarily important from the point of view of their operations. The big problem for the European Union as a whole is that there's an enormous gap between the countries that are, in fact, applying AI in their operations and countries that are not. The Scandinavian, the Nordic countries using AI, whereas the countries of Eastern Europe, Romania, Bulgaria, Cyprus, AI. Romania, there hasn't been any attempt to introduce AI or have a government. They published a government policy late last year. But that, to me, arising from the work that we're doing on our project, an enormous challenge for the European Union as a whole to even out that vast gap between countries that are using it and countries that are not applying AI.
Thank you. That's one of the reflection points to ask either to your company, but now also country perspective. Do you have to be big to be a player in AI? And just yesterday, Digital SME Alliance issued a position paper statement drawing attention that actually there are smaller companies as well who can respond to Europe's wish to host, to own technologies in this area as well. So just by way of comment, maybe quick reaction, and then we'll get another view from the floor.
Yeah, just sorry, on that note, it's actually very important to note that Germany and France, being two of the largest economies of Europe, are very poor in terms of AI adoption, and that's part of the problem. So they are industrially strong, but the adoption is so bad that those countries are 9th and I think 17th, and France is the bad one on this one, 17th place in the European Union. And as you mentioned, the Nordics countries are leading the way. So I think this is the first place we need to look at. How can we encourage those developed countries to lead the way, especially France and Germany? And I think that, for example, SAP in Germany are leading, and they've made an alliance with Mistral AI in France to try to change that. But how can we get users to adopt that quicker?
Thanks.
Thank you, Matthias Rohrmann. I'm a member of the management board of Eurofound and representing German employers. So, right at the right time, with two questions. One question is concerning what you have addressed about qualification. What are the concrete future skills? What do you think? What do we have to do to qualify the staff members in the right way to make them ready for AI? To give you an example, I have learned to write the right prompt is one of the challenges, the main challenges for the future, to get the right answer. So that would be the first question. And the second one, as we are here in Eurofound, a tripartite dialogue, of course I have to ask you, what is the future role of social partners in that conjunction? And then it would be interesting to hear your answer to that. Thank you.
As I walk back before panelists respond, Matthias, thank you very much for bringing it up. Some of us are really reflecting. Social partners at European level had adopted the agreement on digitalization a number of years ago. And with this intensity of AI debate, should there be some reflection and revisiting of that? But that's a rhetorical comment. What do we do with the qualifications? Who and how and what?
I'm happy to start. I think there are a few things to say. One is, I think there's a huge role for experimentation and self-learning. And so the fact that actually a lot of workers are using AI already, and firms are still figuring it out in terms of their strategy, suggests we are in this experimentation phase. And I think that is really useful because it's learning which chatbot you want to use for which task and how to prompt it and how to interrogate the results. I think there's a big role for that for a lot of jobs which aren't necessarily technical jobs where you could use AI. I think in terms of your question about social partners, I think there is a lot of room for policy in terms of stimulating training. And I think, as I said earlier, basic digital skills are a prerequisite for people in many occupations to use these basic AI tools. We're actually working on some research ourselves, looking at the effects of the latest labor market reform in Spain, which reduced temporary contracts and incentivized permanent contracts. And what we're finding is that one of the effects is that, by making the worker-firm relationships more stable and more longer term, firms have invested more in training. So there's like about a 30% increase in the occupations most exposed to the reform compared to the occupations least exposed to the reform as a result of that. So I think incentivizing training by companies is one of the levers that policymakers and social partners can use.
For these social partners, there's an enormous task, I think, in the AI field. Let me just give you one example of an unintended consequence of AI. As I said earlier, this chasm between what individuals do and what organizations want. And the problem is we have big difficulties to get over that chasm. And an example is the top-level AI developers at Microsoft. They're using these tools, and what they're saying, they're augmenting themselves. It means that they're improving themselves quite significantly. But the comical thing is that these workers are downgrading their speed in work because of the augmentation tools. So these people, women and men, are really stressed out by their tasks, but they're using these augmenting tools to lower down the amount of effort. What that means is that the productivity surplus that is created by the tools that they have is now going to the persons. It's not going to the company. And this problem with productivity surplus that is now consumed by the employees is something that does not deliver productivity gain at the company or at the national level. And if we want to understand how we can use that better, we need to discuss between social partners, between trade unions and employers, how to deal with this productivity surplus. We used to know in Europe how to do that. We don't know how to do that today. We have a big task in trying to understand how can we get more grip on what AI and all these technologies will bring to us.
Thank you. A huge point. I will use an opportunity to advertise a little bit. We got a request from Commission and Parliament to carry out a pilot project to look specifically at AI and productivity. And one of the big challenges, not for the project, but in general for Europe, we are discovering is that we really have to rethink how we measure, how we capture the productivity. The very high-level monetary indicator typically used for that in economics may just not be enough. That was my comment. Adrjan.
Thanks. My name is Jeroen Jutte. I'm for the European Commission in the Management Board of Eurofound. And a question to all four of you. The underlying AI models that you're using, is any of them European? Yesterday we heard Professor Susskind about also the political power of AI companies in the future. Clearly Europe is lagging behind. And so as a matter of curiosity, I'm wondering about this, because also this will impact the way we deal with AI, the human focus of AI, the power that AI has on even collective bargaining and social dialogue.
Brilliant. I hope we were alluding to this from the beginning, but now let's put the dots on I very clearly.
Happy to start.
Yeah.
So no is the answer. But I can also ask, maybe, is your phone European? Is your laptop European? Unfortunately, we're far behind, and we can't catch up. The reality for us as a company is we want to be ethical. We want to be Europeans. So we are training currently our models with American open source systems. However, we have the goal to move everything as much as we can from the cloud, from the data, into a European sphere. But Europe is not able to offer us that currently. And when we look, being French myself, we look at Mistral AI, and unfortunately Mistral AI does not perform as well in what we needed to do as ChatGPT or some of the other systems.
Well, that's one of the possible answers. Let's see if we have different perspectives. SAP.
Yeah, so just on that, you mentioned Mistral AI. So actually this week, the EU Summit 2025, SAP announced further expansion of our a partnership with Bleak, Gemini, and Mistral AI in developing cloud, secure and scalable cloud and AI solutions that are controlled within Europe. And in terms of our partnership with Mistral AI specifically, SAP is working towards the first complete sovereign AI stack within Europe. Our own AI is built by SAP, but we also do have integrations with the likes of Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah. Yes and no. So at TNO, we're developing all our own tools and those kind of things, but we're also obliged to work with Copilot. And if you want to do something else, you have to buy yourself a registration or license from Chat or from Claude or from Alpha or other kinds of companies. So and we have all the combinations available. But I just want to stress one thing. This is all about large language models, which are really quite interesting, but they're not that useful for company practices. I think like tools developed by SAP, they have this I think it's called SAP Rapid, RPT. Which is able to read tables and give information in a rightful way, which you can't do with an LLM. So there are a lot of things that we think that we should be doing with LLMs, but there are other tools which are way much better, and SAP is leading in these kind of things. And SAP is, as far as I know, still a European company. So that's but there are three things. The three U's that I say for LLMs, that they are unusable, they have unintended consequences, and they're quite uncontrollable. And so they lead to the fact that we can't predict productivity effects of these things. So we really need to look into this kind of question, because if we only focus on LLMs for the future, we probably won't see the advancement that we need. We need to look at tools like what SAP has developed and promote that somewhat more.
Thank you, Pawel. Anything to add? No? Okay, as our time nearly runs out, I saw a couple more hands, but if you respect the time given, I don't see anyone knocking on the door. So, but still, possibly we should be back for another speech in time. I thank you for observations made. There's plenty more facts to bring up, including from Eurofound's own research about the take-up and use of different tools. There's a big concerning of a big concern is advanced use of technologies in robotics. In the last year, in 24, the installation of new robots in Europe has slowed down. So again, something contrary to this hype discourse about everything being transformed and technologies overtaking work. Evidence is not that straightforward to find. So we definitely want to continue monitoring these types of developments, identifying facts to deal with. On the reflection of what we heard, let's go into the last round of kind of takeaway messages or suggestions, what to bring out of this limited reflection we could have today. What do you think, in the background of things said, are we really dealing with a disruption and revolution, or is there rather an evolution which requires a different, more thorough, more reflective planning?
I mean, I think it's clear that the vast majority of jobs will be somehow reshaped and affected by AI. And, there are studies along those lines saying, there's one study in particular which says 80% of jobs will have at least 10% of their tasks either augmented or automated by AI. So I think people's jobs will be changing as a result. I think it's hard to say, is it a revolution or an evolution? It's a dichotomy, but I think we will see some change in what we do in our daily lives at work.
To echo that as well, SAP's message is that AI is there for augmentation, augmentating the employee experience, productivity, and enhancing the skill sets of employees because they're able to focus their skills elsewhere outside of those routine, repetitive tasks. That will be our key message. Then that needs to be protected by guardrails and training needs to comprise sensitivity towards those whose roles will be impacted by AI.
The annoying thing about an LLM is that it forgets. But the annoying thing about people is that we also tend to forget. So we know that already 30, 40 years ago that about 40% of job tasks change every 2-3 years. And that is a constant. It is something that also happens today. What we're doing today, next year we probably won't be doing. I gave you the example of this company where all these waste tasks were discarded. So this constant change, and that fits better in the picture of evolution than of revolution. But we have to learn and work with these kind of technologies. Yeah.
I believe exactly the same, that it's an evolution. Today it's about augmentation, for sure. We need to appreciate that, we need to use that. I think that Europe has a definite play on looking at our own company strategy to implement that augmentation. And once we accept that, we can be leaders in Europe with AI.
Thank you very much. So my own summary message from your contributions, an invitation to our audience is that while we wait for that revolutionary change to appear, let's not forget to patiently make steps evolving towards that. By way of appreciation, I invite a round of applause to our speakers. And I'm sure we can continue chatting on that as we make our way back to the next speech. Thank you very much.